Adult human brain is about the size of a medium cauliflower, measuring roughly 15 centimeters or 6 inches in length. It typically weighs approximately 1.3 to 1.4 kilograms. It is surrounded and protected by cerebrospinal fluid which cushions the brain and helps to remove waste. Here is a brief overview of all parts of the brain. We will discuss every part in more detail later in the video. Cerebrum. Responsible for higher cognitive functions, cerebellum, coordinates motor movements, balance, and posture. Brainstem. Controls heart rate, breathing, digestion, and sleeping. Thalamus. Acts as a relay center, directing sensory and motor signals to the appropriate parts of the cerebral cortex. Hypothalamus. Regulates hunger, thirst, body temperature, and the release of hormones. Limbic system. Contains structures like the amygdala and hippocampus and is responsible for emotions, memories, and certain aspects of behavior. Pituitary gland. Releases hormones that regulate several physiological processes, including growth and metabolism. Basal ganglia. Is a group of nuclei that play key roles in movement regulation, habit formation, and certain aspects of cognition and emotion. Corpus callosum. Facilitates communication between the left and right sides of the brain. Ventricles. Produce and circulate cerebrospinal fluid to cushion the brain and remove waste. Now we will discuss all these parts in a bit more detail to understand what are these and how they work. Cerebrum. The cerebrum is the largest part of the human brain, accounting for approximately 85% of its weight. It is responsible for most higher-order cognitive functions and can be described in further detail as follows. 1. Hemispheres. The cerebrum is divided into two symmetrical halves, known as the left and right hemispheres. These two halves are separated by a deep groove called the longitudinal fissure but are connected by a thick band of nerve fibers known as the corpus callosum. Left hemisphere is typically associated with logical thinking, analytical processing, and language. In most right-handed individuals, the left hemisphere is dominant for language. Right hemisphere is more involved with creativity, spatial ability, artistic, and musical skills. It also plays a role in interpreting visual information and processing emotions. Lobes of the cerebrum. The cerebral cortex, the outer layer of the cerebrum, is divided into four main lobes. Frontal lobe. Parietal lobe. Temporal lobe. Occipital lobe. Frontal lobe, located at the front of the brain, it's responsible for executive functions such as reasoning, decision-making, planning, and problem-solving. It also oversees voluntary movement, speech production, and aspects of personality and behavior. Parietal lobe. Positioned behind the frontal lobe and above the temporal lobe, it processes sensory information from the body such as touch, taste, and spatial positioning. The somatosensory cortex, which maps tactile information from the body, is located in this lobe. Temporal lobe. Found on the sides of the brain, near the ears, it's associated with processing auditory information, understanding language, and the formation of long-term memories. It also has roles in recognizing faces and processing emotional responses. Occipital lobe. Located at the back of the brain, it's primarily responsible for vision. This includes processing visual information from the eyes, interpreting colors, and recognizing shapes and movement. Gyri and sulci. The surface of the cerebrum is highly convoluted, consisting of ridges, gyri, and grooves, sulci. These convolutions increase the surface area of the cerebrum, allowing more neurons to fit in and enhancing cognitive abilities. Cerebral cortex. This is the outermost layer of the cerebrum and is composed of gray matter. It is densely packed with nerve cells and is responsible for higher cognitive functions, including thinking, perceiving, producing and understanding language. The thickness and structure of the cerebral cortex can vary across individuals and has been associated with various cognitive abilities and personality traits. White matter. Located beneath the cerebral cortex, white matter is made up of myelinated or insulated axons, which are nerve fibers that connect different parts of the brain to each other. The myelin gives this region its white appearance and helps accelerate the transmission of signals between neurons. Basal ganglia. Though often considered separately, the basal ganglia are a group of nuclei deep within the cerebrum. They play a crucial role in movement regulation, habit formation, and certain aspects of cognition and emotion. Limbic system. Also nested within the cerebrum, this system comprises the amygdala, hippocampus, and other structures vital for emotion, behavior, and long-term memory. The cerebrum, with its intricate structures and networks, is central to human consciousness, enabling us to think, learn, create, and experience emotions. It remains a focal point in neuroscience research as we strive to unravel the mysteries of human cognition and behavior. Cerebellum. The cerebellum, often referred to as the little brain due to its appearance and size relative to the cerebrum, is an essential structure located underneath the occipital lobes of the cerebrum at the back of the brain. Here's a detailed breakdown of cerebellum. Structure and functions. The cerebellum is divided into two hemispheres, similar to the cerebrum, and has a finely convoluted surface, which helps maximize its surface area. These convolutions are made up of folds known as folia. In the middle, a narrow worm-like structure called the vermis connects the two hemispheres. The cerebellum plays a key role in fine-tuning motor activities. While the cerebrum might initiate a movement, the cerebellum makes adjustments to ensure the movement is smooth and precise. It helps maintain balance and proper posture, particularly when the body is in motion. The cerebellum is essential for tasks that require practice and repetition, such as riding a bicycle or playing a musical instrument. More recent research has revealed the cerebellum's involvement in certain cognitive and emotional functions. This includes processes like attention, language, and regulating fear and pleasure responses. Layers. The cerebellar cortex, which is the outer layer of the cerebellum, is made up of three distinct layers. Molecular layer. The outermost layer containing few neurons but many extensions from other cells. Purkinje layer. Contains Purkinje cells, large neurons that send inhibitory projections to the deep cerebellar nuclei. Granular layer. The innermost layer made up of tiny granule cells that send excitatory projections up to the molecular layer. Deep cerebellar nuclei. Embedded within the cerebellum are clusters of gray matter known as the deep cerebellar nuclei. These serve as the primary output cantors of the cerebellum, communicating its processed information to other brain regions. Peduncles. The cerebellum communicates with other parts of the brain via three paired structures known as peduncles. Superior cerebellar peduncle. Connects the cerebellum to the midbrain and thalamus, primarily carrying output from the cerebellum to other brain regions. Middle cerebellar peduncle. Connects the cerebellum to the pons and is the primary input route to the cerebellum. Inferior cerebellar peduncle. Connects the cerebellum to the medulla oblongata, facilitating both input and output between the cerebellum and other brain regions. Despite cerebellum's smaller size compared to the cerebrum, the cerebellum contains more neurons and plays a crucial role in a variety of tasks, ensuring they are executed with precision and grace. Brainstem. The brainstem is located at the base of the brain. It serves as the bridge connecting the cerebrum and cerebellum to the spinal cord. The brainstem is critical for basic life functions, such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure. It's involved in reflexes, including those that regulate balance and hearing. It plays a role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle. The brainstem serves as a conduit, with ascending tracts transmitting sensory information to the brain and descending tracts sending motor information to the body. Cranial nerves 3 through 12 originate from the brainstem, controlling functions such as facial expressions, swallowing, and sensation in the face. Here's a detailed look at brainstem. Components. The brainstem can be divided into three main structures, each with specific features and functions. Midbrain or mesencephalon. The most superior portion of the brainstem, the midbrain, is located beneath the thalamus and above the pons. Prominent structures include the cerebral peduncles, which contain motor and sensory tracts, and the corpora quadrigemina, composed of the superior and inferior colliculi. The superior colliculi are involved in visual reflexes, while the inferior colliculi are associated with auditory processing. The midbrain houses the red nucleus, involved in motor coordination, and the substantia nigra, which plays a role in reward and movement. The midbrain contains nuclei for cranial nerves 3 and 4. Pons. Positioned between the medulla and the midbrain, the pons appears as a bulging region on the anterior part of the brainstem. It primarily acts as a relay station, transmitting information between the cerebrum, cerebellum, and spinal cord. The pons also plays a role in regulating the sleep-wake cycle and houses nuclei for cranial nerves 5 through 8. Medulla oblongata. Located closest to the spinal cord, the medulla oblongata is the most inferior part of the brainstem. It regulates several vital and involuntary functions, such as heartbeat, blood pressure, and respiration. Any significant damage to this region can be life-threatening. It also contains the pyramids, which are two elongated ridges on its anterior surface where motor fibers cross over or decussate. This decussation is why each hemisphere of the brain controls the opposite side of the body. The medulla also houses nuclei for cranial nerves 8 through 12. Reticular formation. Spanning the length of the brainstem, the reticular formation is a network of interconnected neurons. It's vital for consciousness, sleep regulation, and overall alertness. Damage to this area can result in coma. The reticular formation also filters sensory input to decide what information is relayed to the cerebral cortex. Thalamus. The thalamus is located in the center of the brain, just above the brainstem, and is nestled between the cerebral cortex and the midbrain. Each hemisphere of the brain contains a thalamus. It is composed of two symmetrical egg-shaped masses of gray matter, and these are surrounded by a thin layer of white matter called the external medullary lamina. It performs various functions. Relay station. One of the primary roles of the thalamus is to relay sensory information from peripheral receptors and the spinal cord to the appropriate regions of the cerebral cortex. It processes and transmits inputs from all the senses, except smell, to associated cortical areas. Motor functions. The thalamus also receives information from the cerebellum and basal ganglia and relays it to the motor areas of the cerebral cortex, aiding in the coordination and modulation of movement. Sleep and wakefulness. It's involved in regulating states of sleep and wakefulness. The thalamus plays a role in controlling the sleep spindle activity during the sleep cycle. Consciousness. The thalamus contributes to consciousness and alertness, particularly through its connections with the cerebral cortex and the reticular formation in the brainstem. Pain perception. The thalamus is also involved in processing pain signals and can modulate the perception of pain. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a small but crucial region of the brain that plays an integral role in connecting the nervous system to the endocrine system via the pituitary gland. The hypothalamus is located below the thalamus, approximately above the pituitary gland, and forms the lower walls and floor of the third ventricle in the brain. It's about the size of an almond and consists of various nuclei and nerve fibers. The hypothalamus is connected to many parts of the central nervous system, including the cerebral cortex, thalamus, basal ganglia, and limbic system. The pituitary gland is attached to the hypothalamus by the infundibulum, or pituitary stalk. Through this connection, the hypothalamus can regulate a wide variety of bodily functions by influencing hormone release from the pituitary. Hypothalamus perform various functions, for example, endocrine system regulation, autonomic nervous system regulation, temperature regulation, hunger and thirst regulation, sleep-wake cycles and circadian rhythms, emotion and behavior, and memory. Limbic system. The limbic system is a collection of structures in the brain involved in various functions including emotion, behavior, motivation, long-term memory, and olfaction. Limbic system is a group of interconnected structures. Here are some of the primary components. Amygdala. A small, almond-shaped set of neurons located deep within the brain's medial temporal lobe. It's key in processing emotions, especially those related to fear and pleasure. Hippocampus. Located in the medial temporal lobe, the hippocampus plays a critical role in forming new memories and connecting emotions and senses, such as smell and sound, to memories. Thalamus. While primarily a relay station for sensory and motor signals to the cerebral cortex, the thalamus does have connections with the limbic system and is involved in some of its functions, especially in relaying sensory information. Hypothalamus. Situated beneath the thalamus, the hypothalamus regulates vital functions like hunger, thirst, body temperature, and sleep. It also helps in controlling mood and emotions and is integrally linked to the endocrine system. Cingulate gyrus. An arc-shaped region that plays a role in regulating aggressive behavior and linking behavioral outcomes to motivation. Parahippocampal gyrus. Surrounding the hippocampus, this region plays a role in memory encoding and retrieval. Basal ganglia. While often associated with movement, the basal ganglia have connections to the limbic system and play a role in certain emotional and cognitive functions. Olfactory bulbs. These are involved in the sense of smell, which can evoke strong emotional responses and memories. Pituitary gland. The pituitary gland, often termed the master gland, is a small, pea-sized structure that plays a crucial role in the human endocrine system. The pituitary gland is situated at the base of the brain, right below the hypothalamus, and is housed within a bony structure called the sella turcica of the sphenoid bone. It is attached to the hypothalamus by a thin stalk known as the infundibulum or pituitary stalk. The gland is divided into two primary sections, the anterior pituitary, or adenohypophysis, and the posterior pituitary, or neurohypophysis. Anterior pituitary, adenohypophysis. This lobe synthesizes and releases several hormones, regulated by releasing and inhibiting hormones sent from the hypothalamus via a portal blood system. Hormones produced and released by the anterior pituitary include growth hormone, thyroid-stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, prolactin, endorphins and enkephalins. Posterior pituitary, neurohypophysis. Unlike the anterior pituitary, which produces hormones, the posterior pituitary stores and releases hormones produced by the hypothalamus. Hormones released by the posterior pituitary include oxytocin and vasopressin. Basal ganglia. The basal ganglia are a group of nuclei located deep within the cerebral hemispheres that play crucial roles in a range of functions, including the control of voluntary motor movements, procedural learning, habit formation, and emotion, among others. The basal ganglia are composed of several interconnected nuclei, which includes striatum, globus pallidus, subthalamic nucleus, and substantia nigra. The basal ganglia have several pathways that process and relay information. Direct pathway, indirect pathway, hyperdirect pathway. Proper balance between these pathways is crucial for smooth motor control. Function. Basal ganglia perform several functions, which include motor control. The basal ganglia, in coordination with the cerebral cortex, thalamus, and brainstem, help smooth out and coordinate movements. They're involved in the initiation and termination of movements, ensuring movements are fluid and purposeful. Procedural learning. They play a role in the learning of routines or sequences, especially motor sequences. Emotions and behavior. The basal ganglia are connected to the limbic system and have been implicated in the control of emotional behaviors and responses. Cognitive functions. They contribute to certain aspects of cognitive processing, decision-making, and task switching. Corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is the largest bundle of nerve fibers in the brain that connects the left and right hemispheres, allowing them to communicate and coordinate with one another. Anatomy and structure. The corpus callosum lies beneath the cerebral cortex, arching around the lateral ventricles. It is composed of over 200 million axonal projections, facilitating the transfer of information, integration of motor, sensory, and cognitive performances between the cerebral hemispheres. The corpus callosum can be segmented into different regions based on its anterior to posterior orientation. Rostrum, genu, body or trunk, and splenium. Functions. Corpus callosum performs several functions, which include interhemispheric communication. Its primary role is to integrate motor, sensory, and cognitive information between the two hemispheres. For instance, sensory information received in one hemisphere can be shared with the opposite hemisphere to produce coordinated motor outputs. Facilitate learning. It's believed to play a role in the sharing of learning and memory processes between hemispheres. Redundancy and recovery. In cases of cerebral damage, like a stroke, to one hemisphere, the corpus callosum may facilitate compensation by transferring functions to undamaged areas in the opposite hemisphere. Ventricles. The ventricles of the brain are a connected system of cavities filled with cerebrospinal fluid, CSF. These cavities not only serve as a reservoir for CSF but also play a role in its circulation and in cushioning the brain. Anatomy and structure. The ventricular system comprises four main ventricles. Lateral ventricles, first and second ventricles. These are the largest of the ventricles and are found within each hemisphere of the cerebral cortex, having a curved, horseshoe-like shape. Each lateral ventricle consists of a central body and three protruding horns, the anterior or frontal, posterior or occipital, and inferior or temporal horns. Third ventricle. This is a narrow, funnel-shaped cavity located in the midline, between the left and right thalamus. It's connected to each lateral ventricle by the interventricular foramen or foramen of Monro. Fourth ventricle. Located between the pons and the cerebellum. It communicates with the third ventricle above through the cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius. Function. Cerebrospinal fluid or CSF production. The ventricles are lined by ependymal cells, and within the ventricles, specialized structures called choroid plexuses produce CSF. Brain protection. CSF acts as a cushion, providing a protective layer for the brain against trauma. The fluid also helps maintain intracranial pressure, which is crucial for normal brain function. Nutrient and waste transport. CSF facilitates the exchange of nutrients and waste products between the brain and the blood. This was the basic overview of human brain, its components, and functions which brain and its components perform. We will go in more detail in some other video. That's it for today. Hope you like this video. For more videos on human body and organ system, please subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.
The human eye is a sophisticated optical instrument that functions similarly to a camera. It collects light from the environment and transforms it into neural signals that the brain interprets as vision. Every component of the eye, from its external protective structures to its intricate internal layers, works in harmony to focus light accurately onto the retina, where visual information is processed. External structures of the eye. The external aspects of the eye are designed primarily for protection and maintenance of a clear optical pathway. The eyelids, eyelashes, and conjunctiva are all critical in shielding the eye from foreign particles and excessive light, while also helping to distribute tears evenly over its surface. The lacrimal apparatus, which includes the lacrimal gland and associated ducts, produces and drains tears, ensuring that the eye remains moist and that the corneal surface stays free from debris and pathogens. Eyelids, eyelashes, conjunctiva, and lacrimal apparatus. The eyelids are movable structures that protect the eyeball from mechanical injury and serve to spread the tear film uniformly across the eye during blinking. Eyelashes act as a first line of defense, trapping dust and small particles before they can reach the eye's delicate surface. The conjunctiva, a thin and transparent membrane that covers the sclera and lines the inside of the eyelids, plays a vital role in lubrication and infection prevention. In tandem with these, the lacrimal apparatus produces the tears that not only moisten the eye, but also help remove any irritants, ensuring the cornea remains clear and receptive to incoming light. Internal structures of the eye. Inside the eye, three primary layers form a complex system that transforms light into electrical signals. These layers are arranged concentrically and include the outer fibrous tunic, the middle vascular tunic, and the inner nervous tunic. Outer fibrous tunic. The outer fibrous tunic consists of the sclera and the cornea. The sclera is a dense white protective layer that maintains the shape of the eyeball and provides an attachment for the eye muscles. In contrast, the cornea is a clear dome-shaped structure that covers the front of the eye. Its curvature and transparency are essential for refracting light, directing it through the pupil and onto the internal structures for accurate focusing. Middle vascular tunic, uvea. Situated beneath the fibrous tunic is the vascular layer, also known as the uvea, which comprises the choroid, ciliary body, and iris. The choroid is a pigmented layer rich in blood vessels that supplies oxygen and nutrients to the retina while absorbing stray light to prevent image blurring. The ciliary body, attached to the choroid, produces the aqueous humor that nourishes the eye and helps maintain intraocular pressure, and its muscular components adjust the shape of the lens for focusing. The iris, the colored part of the eye, regulates the amount of light entering the eye by altering the size of the pupil, adapting to various lighting conditions. Inner nervous tunic, retina. The innermost layer of the eye is the retina, a complex, light-sensitive tissue where visual processing begins. It contains photoreceptor cells known as rods and cones. Rods are highly sensitive to light and facilitate vision in dim conditions, while cones are responsible for detecting color and providing high visual acuity in bright light. The central region of the retina, called the macula and within it the fovea, is densely packed with cones, making it crucial for tasks requiring detailed vision such as reading. The retina converts light into electrical impulses that are transmitted through the optic nerve to the brain, where they are interpreted as visual images. Lens and fluid-filled chambers. Behind the iris and pupil lies the lens, a transparent, flexible structure that adjusts its shape to focus light precisely on the retina. The lens's ability to change curvature, known as accommodation, allows the eye to clearly view objects at various distances. Supporting this process are two fluid-filled chambers, the anterior chamber, located between the cornea and the lens, and the posterior chamber, or vitreous cavity, which fills the space between the lens and the retina. The aqueous humor fills the anterior chamber, maintaining intraocular pressure and providing nourishment, while the vitreous humor, a gel-like substance, helps to preserve the eye's shape and keeps the retina in close contact with the underlying tissue layers. Visual processing and the functional pathway. Once light is focused onto the retina, the photoreceptors initiate a biochemical process that converts the light signal into electrical impulses. These impulses travel through a network of retinal neurons, including bipolar and ganglion cells, before being transmitted along the optic nerve to the brain. The brain then processes these signals, reconstructing them into the visual images that allow us to interpret our surroundings. This intricate cascade from the initial refraction of light to the final neural interpretation ensures that the human eye functions as a highly efficient, precise instrument for vision. Overall, the human eye is a marvel of biological engineering, allowing us to perceive the world in vivid detail. From the protective eyelashes to the intricate retina, each component works in harmony to provide vision. Understanding its anatomy helps us appreciate not only its complexity, but also the importance of eye care. As technology advances, so does our ability to prevent and treat vision-related issues, making eye health a priority for a better quality of life.
The human ear is a complex organ responsible for hearing and balance. It is divided into three main sections: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. Each part plays a crucial role in the process of hearing and maintaining equilibrium. Outer ear. Pinna or auricle, the visible part of the ear that is on the outside of the head. It's made of cartilage and skin and is shaped to capture sound waves and funnel them into the ear canal. Ear canal or external auditory meatus, a tube-like structure that leads from the pinna to the eardrum. It helps to further direct sound waves towards the eardrum. Middle ear. Tympanic membrane or eardrum, a thin, cone-shaped membrane that separates the outer ear from the middle ear. It vibrates when sound waves hit it, converting these waves into mechanical vibrations. Ossicles, 3 tiny bones in the middle ear called the malleus, incus, and stapes. These bones are the smallest in the human body and they amplify and transmit the vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. Inner ear. Cochlea, a spiral-shaped, fluid-filled tube that is responsible for converting mechanical vibrations into electrical signals that the brain interprets as sound. It contains tiny hair cells that move in response to fluid vibrations, creating nerve impulses. Vestibular system, this includes the semicircular canals and the otolithic organs, utricle and saccule, which are crucial for balance. These structures detect changes in head position and movement, helping to maintain equilibrium. Let's start with the outer ear. It has 2 main components which are pinna and ear canal. Pinna. The pinna, also known as the auricle, is the visible part of the ear that is located on the outside of the head. It's a key component of the outer ear and plays an important role in the hearing process. Here are some details about the pinna. Structure and composition. The pinna is primarily made up of cartilage covered by skin. The cartilage gives it a firm yet flexible structure. It has a unique, complex shape with ridges and folds, such as the helix, the lobule, and the tragus. Function in hearing. The primary function of the pinna is to capture sound waves from the environment and funnel them into the ear canal towards the eardrum. Its shape is designed to efficiently collect and direct sound. Different parts of the pinna help in gathering sounds coming from various directions, which is important for locating the source of a sound in the environment. Role in sound localization. The pinna plays a significant role in vertical sound localization, determining whether a sound is coming from above, below, or at the same level as the listener. The folds and contours of the pinna affect sound waves differently depending on their origin, creating subtle changes in the sound that help the brain determine the sound's location. Individual variation. The shape and size of the pinna vary greatly among individuals, and these variations can affect the way sound is perceived. Despite these differences, the basic function of sound collection and direction remains consistent. Non-hearing functions. The pinna also contributes to the aesthetic and facial identity of an individual. It can be a site for adornment, such as earrings, which is a common cultural practice across many societies. Limitations. While the pinna is important for sound collection and localization, it does not play a role in the actual processing of sound. This is done by the inner parts of the ear and the brain. Ear canal or external auditory meatus. The ear canal, also known as the external auditory meatus, is a key component of the outer ear and plays a crucial role in the hearing process. Here's a detailed explanation of its structure and function. Structure. The ear canal is a tube-like passage approximately 2.5 centimeters, 1 inch, in length in adults, leading from the outer ear to the eardrum. It is slightly curved in shape, which helps protect the eardrum by preventing direct entry of foreign objects. The outer third of the canal is made of cartilage, similar to the pinna, while the inner 2/3 consist of bone. The bony part is surrounded by a thin layer of skin. Lining. The skin lining the ear canal contains hair follicles and glands that produce earwax, cerumen. This wax plays several important roles in ear health. Function in hearing. The primary function of the ear canal is to conduct sound waves from the outer ear to the eardrum. Its shape and length are designed to amplify these sound waves and optimize their transmission. Protection. Earwax produced in the ear canal has protective properties. It traps dust, dirt, and other particles, preventing them from reaching and potentially damaging the eardrum. The wax also has antibacterial and antifungal properties, helping to keep the ear canal healthy. The slight curve of the canal, along with the presence of hair, also helps in protecting the deeper structures of the ear from foreign objects and insects. Maintenance of ear health. Normally, the ear canal is self-cleaning. Earwax and debris gradually move out of the canal due to the movement of the jaw, like when chewing, eventually drying up and falling out of the ear. Overcleaning or using inappropriate objects to clean the ear can disrupt this natural process and lead to problems like impaction, irritation, or infection. Sensitivity. The skin in the ear canal is thin and sensitive, making it susceptible to irritation and infection. Conditions like otitis externa, swimmer's ear, can occur due to inflammation or infection of the ear canal. Resonance. The ear canal also contributes to the resonance of sound frequencies, particularly those important for understanding speech. This resonance enhances certain frequencies, making it easier to hear and interpret spoken words. Lobule, earlobe. Structure. Composition. Unlike the rest of the pinna, the earlobe contains no cartilage. It is composed of connective and adipose tissue, making it soft and pliable. Variability. Earlobes vary greatly among individuals in size, shape, and whether they are free or attached. Function. Cultural and cosmetic. The earlobe doesn't have a direct role in hearing. Its significance is more cultural and cosmetic, often being a site for jewelry, earrings, and body modification. Genetic marker. The characteristic of having attached or detached earlobes is a commonly cited example of a simple genetic trait. Middle ear. Middle ear have two major components, tympanic membrane and ossicles. Tympanic membrane or eardrum. The tympanic membrane, commonly known as the eardrum, is a critical component of the human ear, playing an essential role in the process of hearing. Here's a detailed explanation of its structure, function, and importance. Structure. The eardrum is a thin, semi-transparent membrane that separates the outer ear from the middle ear. It's roughly oval in shape and measures about 8 to 10 millimeters in diameter in adults. The membrane is composed of 3 layers. The outer layer is continuous with the skin lining the ear canal. The middle layer is fibrous and gives the eardrum its strength and ability to vibrate. The inner layer is mucous membrane, similar to the lining of the middle ear. Function in hearing. The primary function of the eardrum is to convert sound waves that travel through the air into mechanical vibrations. When sound waves enter the ear canal, they strike the eardrum and cause it to vibrate. The frequency and intensity of these vibrations correspond to the frequency and loudness of the sound waves. These vibrations are then transmitted to the 3 small bones, ossicles, in the middle ear, the malleus, incus, and stapes. Role in middle ear protection. The eardrum acts as a barrier, protecting the delicate structures of the middle ear from foreign objects, bacteria, and water that could enter through the ear canal. It also helps to maintain the proper pressure balance between the external environment and the middle ear, which is crucial for the proper functioning of the middle ear bones. Sensitivity and damage. The eardrum is sensitive and can be damaged by various factors, such as loud noises, sudden pressure changes, infections, or physical trauma, like poking it with a cotton swab or other object. A perforated eardrum, a tear or hole in the eardrum, can lead to hearing loss, pain, and increased susceptibility to ear infections. Healing. In many cases, a damaged eardrum can heal on its own, but severe tears may require medical intervention, such as surgery. Diagnostic relevance. Examination of the eardrum can provide valuable information about the health of the ear. Changes in its appearance can indicate various conditions, such as infections, fluid in the middle ear, or eardrum perforation. The efficiency of sound transmission through the eardrum is crucial for normal hearing. Any alteration in its structure or function can lead to conductive hearing loss. Ossicles. The ossicles are a group of 3 tiny bones in the middle ear, known as the malleus, incus, and stapes. They are the smallest bones in the human body and play a crucial role in the process of hearing by transmitting sound vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. Here's a detailed explanation of each ossicle and their collective function. Malleus or hammer. The malleus is the first of the 3 ossicles and is attached to the inner surface of the tympanic membrane, eardrum. It resembles a hammer in shape, with a long handle attached to the eardrum and a head that connects to the next bone, the incus. When sound waves cause the eardrum to vibrate, these vibrations are transferred to the malleus. Incus or anvil. The incus is the middle bone, situated between the malleus and stapes. It has an anvil-like shape and serves as a bridge for transmitting vibrations from the malleus to the stapes. The joint between the malleus and incus allows efficient transmission and amplification of these vibrations. Stapes or stirrup. The stapes is the smallest and last of the ossicles, named for its stirrup-like shape. It has a footplate that fits into the oval window, a membrane-covered opening to the inner ear. Vibrations transmitted to the stapes cause the footplate to move in and out of the oval window, creating waves in the fluid of the inner ear or cochlea. Collective function of the ossicles. Transmission and amplification. The primary function of the ossicles is to transmit sound vibrations from the eardrum to the inner ear. As the vibrations move from the larger surface area of the eardrum to the smaller area of the stapes footplate, they are amplified. This amplification is crucial for efficient hearing, as the sound waves need to be strong enough to create waves in the fluid of the cochlea. Impedance matching. The ossicles also play a role in impedance matching between the air in the external auditory canal and the fluid of the cochlea. Impedance matching ensures that most of the sound energy is transferred into the inner ear rather than being reflected and lost, which is important for the sensitive process of converting sound waves into neural signals. Protection. The ossicular chain has a protective mechanism against excessively loud sounds. The muscles attached to the malleus and stapes, the tensor tympani and stapedius muscles, respectively, can contract reflexively in response to loud sounds, reducing the transmission of sound energy to the inner ear and helping to protect it from damage. Inner ear. Inner ear consists of cochlea and vestibular system. Cochlea. The cochlea is an intricate and essential component of the inner ear, playing a critical role in the auditory system. It is responsible for converting mechanical sound vibrations into electrical signals that the brain can interpret as sound. Here's a more detailed look at its structure and function. Structure of the cochlea. Spiral shape. The cochlea is a spiral-shaped, coiled tube resembling a snail shell. It makes about 2.5 turns around a central bony pillar called the modiolus. Internal division. Inside, the cochlea is divided along its length by two membranes, the Reissner's membrane and the basilar membrane. This division creates three parallel, fluid-filled chambers or canals, the scala vestibuli, scala media, cochlear duct, and scala tympani. Scala vestibuli and scala tympani. These two chambers are filled with a fluid called perilymph, which is similar in composition to cerebrospinal fluid. The scala vestibuli begins near the oval window, where the stapes bone transmits sound vibrations into the cochlea. The scala tympani ends at the round window, another membrane-covered opening that allows for fluid displacement within the cochlea. Scala media or cochlear duct. The scala media contains a different fluid called endolymph, which is rich in potassium and crucial for the transduction process. It houses the organ of Corti, the sensory organ of hearing. Organ of Corti. Located on the basilar membrane, it contains rows of sensory hair cells and supporting cells. Above the hair cells is the tectorial membrane, which plays a role in the stimulation of these cells. Hair cells. There are two types of hair cells: inner hair cells, responsible for transmitting sound information to the brain, and outer hair cells, involved in amplifying and fine-tuning sound vibrations. The hair cells have tiny projections called stereocilia that protrude into the endolymph. Function of the cochlea. Sound wave transmission. Sound vibrations enter the cochlea via the oval window, causing movement in the perilymph of the scala vestibuli. Basilar membrane movement. These movements create a traveling wave along the basilar membrane, causing it to move up and down. Stimulation of hair cells. The movement of the basilar membrane causes the hair cells in the organ of Corti to bend against the tectorial membrane. This bending opens ion channels, leading to a change in the electrical potential of the hair cells, effectively converting mechanical energy into electrical signals. Auditory nerve stimulation. The electrical signals generated by the hair cells stimulate the auditory nerve fibers connected to them. These nerve fibers carry the auditory information to the brain, where it is interpreted as sound. Frequency mapping, tonotopy. Different frequencies of sound affect different parts of the cochlea. High-frequency sounds cause more movement at the base of the cochlea, while low-frequency sounds affect the apex. This tonotopic organization allows the brain to distinguish between different sound frequencies. Importance in hearing. The cochlea's ability to perform auditory transduction, converting sound waves into electrical signals, is fundamental to our sense of hearing. Damage or dysfunction in the cochlea can lead to hearing loss, underscoring its critical role in the auditory system. Vestibular system. The vestibular system is a complex sensory system that is crucial for normal movement and balance. Located in the inner ear, it works closely with other sensory systems, such as vision and proprioception, the sense of body position, to maintain the body's position and equilibrium. Here's a detailed look at its structure and function. Structure of the vestibular system. Semicircular canals. There are 3 semicircular canals, anterior, posterior, and lateral, in each ear, oriented at roughly right angles to each other. These canals are filled with a fluid called endolymph and contain a sensory organ called the crista ampullaris. The crista ampullaris has hair cells similar to those in the cochlea, and their movement in response to fluid motion is crucial for detecting rotational movements of the head. Otolith organs. These consist of the utricle and saccule, which are responsible for detecting linear acceleration and gravity. Inside these organs are small crystals called otoliths, calcium carbonate crystals, that sit on top of a gelatinous layer covering the hair cells. Movement of the head causes the otoliths to shift, which bends the hair cells and sends signals to the brain about the head's position relative to gravity and linear motion. Function of the vestibular system. Balance and equilibrium. The vestibular system provides critical information about motion, head position, and spatial orientation. It helps maintain balance and stabilize the eyes and body during movement. Detection of head movements. The semicircular canals detect rotational movements, like turning the head side to side, nodding, or tilting. Each canal is sensitive to movements in a different plane, covering a full range of head rotations. Detection of linear movements and gravity. The otolith organs, utricle and saccule, detect linear movements, such as forward-backward, up-down, and side-to-side motion, and the effects of gravity. They help in understanding the orientation of the head relative to the ground, aiding in balance and posture. Vestibuloocular reflex, VAR. This reflex stabilizes vision during head movements by producing eye movements in the opposite direction of head movement, allowing for clear vision while moving. Integration with other systems. The vestibular system works closely with the visual system and proprioceptive sensors in the body to maintain balance and spatial orientation. Information from the vestibular system is sent to the brainstem, cerebellum, and other areas of the brain to help coordinate movement and balance. Clinical importance. Disorders of the vestibular system can lead to symptoms like dizziness, vertigo, balance disturbances, and visual disturbances during movement. Vestibular function is often assessed in patients with dizziness or balance problems to determine the underlying cause.
Why do we have an appendix if we don't need it? For a long time, the appendix was considered a useless body part, something left over from evolution that no longer served a purpose in modern humans. Many people still believe that we don't need it at all, especially because people can live without it. But modern biology and anatomy tell a more interesting story. In this article, we'll explore what the appendix is, where it is in the body, what it may actually do, and why it might not be as useless as it seems, all explained in simple terms so that anyone, even someone new to biology, can understand. What is the appendix? The appendix is a small, tube-like structure that sticks out from the cecum, which is the first part of the large intestine. It's found in the lower right side of your abdomen. In medical terms, it is called the vermiform appendix, which means worm-shaped appendix because it looks like a small worm or finger. It is usually 3 to 5 inches long. Even though it's tiny and doesn't play a big role in digestion like the stomach or small intestine, its structure and position tell us a lot about its past and maybe even its purpose today. Why we have appendix? To understand why we have an appendix, we need to go back to our evolutionary history. Millions of years ago, our ancestors had very different diets. They ate lots of raw plants, leaves, and roots which are hard to digest. Back then, their cecum and appendix were much larger and acted as a fermentation chamber. In this chamber, bacteria helped break down the tough fibers in plants. But as humans evolved, we started cooking food and eating more meat, fruits, and processed grains. These foods are easier to digest, so our digestive system didn't need such a big cecum anymore. Over time, the cecum shrank, and the appendix became smaller too. Because it became so small and seemed to serve no purpose, scientists thought the appendix was a vestigial organ, a leftover from evolution that no longer had a function. But now we know that's not entirely true. What does the appendix actually do? More recent research shows that the appendix may still have important functions, especially in supporting our immune system and maintaining a healthy balance of gut bacteria. Let's take a closer look at the two main functions scientists now believe the appendix performs. 1. A safe house for good bacteria. Your digestive tract, especially the colon, is home to trillions of good bacteria. These bacteria help break down food, produce vitamins, and protect you from harmful germs. When you get a serious stomach infection, for example, severe diarrhea caused by food poisoning, most of these good bacteria get flushed out of your intestines. That's when the appendix steps in. Because the appendix is a narrow, closed-end tube attached to the side of the cecum, it's protected from the main flow of waste. It acts like a safe storage area where some of these helpful bacteria can hide during an infection. Once the infection is over and your gut is empty, the bacteria from the appendix can come out and repopulate the rest of the colon, helping your digestive system return to normal faster. Think of the appendix like a backup tank for your gut's bacteria, small, quiet, but helpful when needed. 2. Helps the immune system, especially in early life. The appendix contains lymphoid tissue, which is part of your lymphatic system, the body's defense system that helps fight infections and diseases. This tissue is rich in white blood cells, which are the soldiers of your immune system. In children and young adults, the appendix plays a role in developing immune responses by exposing immune cells to different bacteria and antigens. Basically, the appendix may help train the immune system during early life, teaching it to recognize harmful invaders and to build resistance to them. While this immune function seems to decrease as you grow older, it still shows that the appendix has a meaningful role, especially when the immune system is still developing. If it's useful, why can we live without it? This is a great question. Yes, you can live without the appendix, and many people do, especially those who have had appendicitis and needed surgery to remove it. That's why some people think it's not important. But just because you can live without something doesn't mean it has no purpose. For example, people can live without one kidney, tonsils, or even their gallbladder, but those organs all do helpful things. The body is amazing because it can adapt and compensate when one part is removed, especially with good health care, clean water, and proper nutrition. However, in places where people don't have access to clean water or medical care, the appendix might play a more important role in gut health and recovery from infections. What is appendicitis? Appendicitis is when the appendix becomes inflamed and infected. It usually happens when something blocks the opening of the appendix, like hard stool, swelling, or bacteria. When blocked, the appendix fills with pus, a thick fluid full of white blood cells and bacteria, and this causes pain and swelling. If not treated quickly, the appendix can burst, which can spread infection to the rest of the abdomen, a dangerous condition called peritonitis. Symptoms of appendicitis include sudden pain in the lower right belly, fever, nausea and vomiting, loss of appetite. Treatment usually involves removing the appendix through surgery, a procedure called an appendectomy. Final thoughts? In human anatomy, every part of the body has a story. The appendix may be small and often ignored, but it's not useless. It helps protect and support our digestive and immune systems, especially in ways we didn't fully understand until recently. So the next time someone says, "Why do we even have an appendix if we don't need it?" you can confidently say, "Actually, the appendix stores good bacteria and helps our immune system, especially when we're young." Even the smallest parts of the body can have quiet, important jobs.
Muscles are soft tissues in your body that help you move, stand tall, breathe, talk, and even pump blood. They work like tiny motors, pulling bones or squeezing things inside your body when needed. Types of muscles. There are three main types of muscles: skeletal muscles, cardiac muscles, and smooth muscles. Skeletal muscles are the ones you can control. They're attached to your bones and help you do things like jump, run, wave, or smile. If you decide to lift your arm, your brain sends a signal to these muscles to move. They look striped under a microscope and called striated and have many tiny control centers, nuclei, to help them work hard and fast. Cardiac muscles are the muscles in your heart.
You can't control them. They work all the time on their own to keep your heart beating and pumping blood. They also have stripes like skeletal muscles, but only one control center per cell. They connect very well so your heart can beat in a steady rhythm. Smooth muscles are also not under your control. They are found in places like your stomach, intestines, blood vessels, and bladder. They help move food, push pee out, or change the size of your blood vessels. These don't look striped and also have just one control center in each cell. Tiny parts inside skeletal muscles. Let's zoom in. Each muscle is made of fibers. These fibers are like long ropes wrapped in a skin called the sarcolemma. Inside them is jelly-like stuff, sarcoplasm, filled with even smaller ropes called myofibrils. Each myofibril is divided into tiny sections called sarcomeres. Sarcomeres are the parts that actually help the muscle squeeze and pull. They have two kinds of threads, thick threads called myosin and thin threads called actin. The myosin heads grab the actin and pull it, making the muscle shorter and tighter. This is how a muscle contracts, or works. Two helper proteins, called troponin and tropomyosin, help decide when the actin is ready to be pulled. How muscles move. Muscles work when they get a signal from your brain. A nerve sends a message to a muscle through a place called the neuromuscular junction. A chemical messenger named acetylcholine, ACH, is released. This chemical makes the muscle start an action potential, an electric wave inside the muscle. This wave tells a storage area, the sarcoplasmic reticulum, to let out calcium. Calcium turns on the actin by moving the blockers, tropomyosin, and myosin grabs actin and pulls. If there's enough ATP, the muscle's energy, this happens again and again until you stop the movement. When you're done moving, ACH is cleaned up by acetylcholinesterase, calcium goes back into storage, the actin is blocked again, and your muscle relaxes. How muscles get energy. Muscles need energy to work. They use a special fuel called ATP. Your body gets ATP in different ways. Creatine phosphate gives super quick energy for short efforts. Anaerobic glycolysis breaks down sugar without oxygen. Good for short bursts, but can make you tired. Aerobic respiration uses oxygen to make lots of ATP for long-term activities like walking or cycling. Types of muscle fibers. Muscles come in different styles, each good for different activities. Type 1, slow twitch fibers are slow and steady, great for endurance like marathon running. Type 2A, fast twitch, endurance. Fibers are a bit faster and still last long. Type 2B, fast twitch power fibers are super fast and strong, perfect for sprinting, but they tire quickly. Muscles in the body. Muscles are made of smaller bundles. Muscle fibers are grouped into fascicles. Fascicles are covered by layers called endomysium around each fiber, perimysium around each group of fibers, and epimysium around the whole muscle. All these wrap together and become tendons, which attach to bones and help pull them during movement. How muscles work together. Muscles work as a team. The origin is the part of the muscle that stays still. The insertion is the part that moves. The agonist is the main muscle doing the job. The antagonist does the opposite action. The synergist helps the main muscle. The fixator keeps everything stable. Muscle names. Muscles get their names from different things. It could be where they are, like the biceps brachii in the arm. It could be their shape, like deltoid, which is triangle-shaped. It might be their size, like gluteus maximus, the big butt muscle. It can also be based on how the fibers run, like rectus abdominis or straight fibers. Some are named by how many parts they have, like biceps have 2 heads. Others are named by what they do, like flexor carpi, which helps you bend your wrist. Important muscle groups. Muscles in your head and neck include ones like the masseter, which helps you chew, and the sternocleidomastoid, which turns your head. In the arms, the deltoid lifts your arm, biceps bend it, and triceps straighten it. In the torso, muscles like the chest, pectoralis, abs, rectus abdominis, and back, latissimus dorsi, help you twist, sit up, or reach. In the legs, the gluteus maximus helps you stand and climb. Quadriceps and hamstrings help you walk or jump. Calf muscles like gastrocnemius help you tiptoe. Muscle problems. Sometimes muscles can have problems. Muscular dystrophy is when muscles get weaker over time because of genes. Myasthenia gravis is when the immune system causes muscles to become weak. Fibromyalgia makes muscles hurt for a long time. Strains and sprains happen when muscles or ligaments get stretched or torn. Cramps are sudden, painful muscle squeezes, often caused by not drinking enough water. Muscle growth and healing. Muscles grow and heal in interesting ways. Hypertrophy is when muscles get bigger because you use them a lot, like when you exercise. Atrophy is when muscles shrink because you don't use them. Satellite cells are special helper cells that fix and grow muscles when they're hurt. Overall, your muscles are amazing. They let you run, jump, smile, and even breathe without thinking. Taking care of your muscles with exercise, good food, and rest helps them stay strong and healthy.
The liver is the largest internal organ and is located in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen, just beneath the diaphragm. It extends from the right side of the body to the midline. It has a complex and somewhat irregular shape. It is often described as having a roughly triangular shape. Lobes. Shape of the liver can be further broken down into its various lobes and segments. Right lobe. The right lobe is the larger and more prominent portion of the liver. It is situated on the right side of the body and extends from the midline of the body to the right side. It is further divided into two smaller lobes, the anterior, front, and posterior, back, segments, by the right hepatic vein. Left lobe. The left lobe of the liver is smaller and is located on the left side of the body. It extends from the midline to the left side. The left lobe is further divided into the medial and lateral segments. Quadrate lobe. This small, square-shaped lobe is found on the undersurface of the liver, adjacent to the gallbladder. It is sometimes considered a separate lobe. Caudate lobe. The caudate lobe is a small, tail-like extension of the liver that is located on the posterior surface of the liver, near the vena cava. These lobes and segments give the liver its complex and irregular shape. While the overall shape of the liver is often likened to a triangle, it is more accurately described as a multi-lobed, wedge-like organ with these distinct parts. Capsule. The liver capsule is a dense, fibrous connective tissue that forms a protective layer around the entire liver. It is relatively tough and resilient. The capsule is composed of collagen fibers and connective tissue elements. The primary function of the liver capsule is to provide structural support to the liver and protect it from external forces. It helps maintain the liver's shape and integrity. The capsule also serves as a barrier that prevents the spread of infections or diseases from surrounding organs or tissues to the liver. The liver capsule is attached to the liver's outer surface, forming a close association with the organ. It also attaches to the surrounding structures in the abdominal cavity, including the diaphragm and the abdominal wall. This anchoring helps keep the liver in its proper anatomical position. The liver capsule is rich in nerve fibers, which makes it sensitive to stretching and pressure. In medical practice, the liver capsule's sensitivity can be used to diagnose certain liver conditions. For example, during a physical examination, a healthcare provider may apply gentle pressure to the right upper abdominal area to check for tenderness or discomfort, which may indicate liver issues. Blood vessels. The liver is a highly vascular organ, meaning it has an extensive network of blood vessels that play a crucial role in its functions. These blood vessels serve various functions in the liver, including the supply of oxygen and nutrients, as well as the removal of waste products. Here are the main blood vessels associated with the liver. Hepatic artery. The hepatic artery is responsible for supplying oxygen-rich blood to the liver. It typically branches off from the celiac artery, which is a major branch of the abdominal aorta. This oxygenated blood is essential for the metabolic functions of the liver, particularly the hepatocytes or liver cells. The hepatic artery provides the liver with oxygen and nutrients. Portal vein. The portal vein is a major blood vessel that carries nutrient-rich blood from the digestive organs to the liver. It collects blood from the stomach, intestines, spleen, and pancreas and delivers it to the liver. This blood is rich in the products of digestion, including nutrients and toxins. The liver plays a vital role in processing these substances and regulating blood sugar levels. Hepatic portal system. The hepatic portal system is a unique circulatory system involving the portal vein. It allows the liver to filter and process nutrients, medications, and toxins before they enter the general circulation. This system is essential for detoxification and the regulation of various metabolic processes. Hepatic veins. After the blood has been processed in the liver, it is collected by the hepatic veins. These veins transport the filtered, deoxygenated blood from the liver to the inferior vena cava, a large vein that carries blood back to the heart. The hepatic veins exit the liver at a location known as the hepatic hilum, typically on the underside of the liver. Sinusoids. Within the liver, the hepatic artery, portal vein, and hepatic vein all converge into a complex network of tiny blood vessels known as sinusoids. The sinusoids are lined with hepatocytes and play a crucial role in the exchange of nutrients, gases, and waste products between the blood and liver tissue. Bile ducts. Bile ducts are tubular structures that vary in size and complexity. They form a branching network that begins within the liver and extends the system to deliver bile to the small intestine. The main components of the bile duct system include the intrahepatic ducts, the extrahepatic ducts, and the common bile duct. Intrahepatic ducts. These are the smaller bile ducts located within the liver itself. They collect bile from the liver's hepatocytes and converge to form larger ducts that eventually exit the liver. The intrahepatic ducts are responsible for transporting bile from the liver's lobules to the extrahepatic ducts. Extrahepatic ducts. After exiting the liver, bile flows into the extrahepatic ducts, including the left and right hepatic ducts. These ducts merge to form the common hepatic duct, which continues outside the liver. Common bile duct. The common hepatic duct joins with the cystic duct, which comes from the gallbladder, to form the common bile duct. The common bile duct is the final segment of the bile duct system. It carries bile from the liver and gallbladder to the small intestine. Just before entering the small intestine, the common bile duct usually joins with the pancreatic duct to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla, which is also called ampulla of Fata. This is where bile and pancreatic enzymes are released into the small intestine to aid in digestion. Sphincters. To regulate the flow of bile into the small intestine, there are two important sphincters associated with the common bile duct: the hepatopancreatic sphincter and the sphincter at the duodenal papilla. These sphincters control the release of bile into the duodenum, the first part of the small intestine. Gallbladder. The gallbladder is a small, pear-shaped organ located beneath the liver in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen. It is part of the biliary system, which includes the liver and the bile ducts. It is a muscular organ that can hold and store bile, a greenish-yellow digestive fluid produced by the liver. It has a neck, a body, and a fundus, and it typically measures 7 to 10 centimeters in length. Primary function of the gallbladder is to store and concentrate bile produced by the liver. Bile is necessary for the digestion and absorption of dietary fats. When you eat, especially when you consume fatty foods, the gallbladder contracts, releasing concentrated bile into the small intestine, specifically into the duodenum, through the common bile duct. This bile helps in emulsifying fats, breaking them down into smaller droplets for more efficient digestion and absorption by pancreatic enzymes. Bile production. The liver continuously produces bile, but it is not always needed for digestion. Excess bile is diverted into the gallbladder for storage and concentration. The gallbladder can concentrate bile by absorbing water and electrolytes from it, making the stored bile more potent. Bile composition. Bile is composed of water, bile salts, bilirubin, cholesterol, and electrolytes. Bile salts are the primary component responsible for emulsifying fats, aiding in their digestion. Bilirubin gives bile its characteristic color. Regulation. The release of bile from the gallbladder is controlled by hormonal signals. Cholecystokinin or CCK is a hormone released in response to the presence of fats in the small intestine. CCK stimulates the contraction of the gallbladder and the relaxation of the sphincter of Oddi, which is the muscular valve that controls the flow of bile into the small intestine, allowing bile to flow into the duodenum. Gallstones. Gallstones can form within the gallbladder due to the precipitation of cholesterol or bilirubin. These stones can block the flow of bile and cause various problems, including gallbladder inflammation, cholecystitis, gallstone obstruction of the bile ducts, cholelithiasis, or infection, cholecystitis. When gallstones cause symptoms or complications, surgical removal of the gallbladder, cholecystectomy, may be necessary. Removal. In cases of severe gallbladder disease or frequent gallstone issues, surgical removal of the gallbladder called cholecystectomy may be recommended. The removal of the gallbladder is a common procedure and does not significantly affect digestion, as the liver can still produce bile that flows directly into the small intestine. The liver is an indispensable organ that performs an array of critical functions essential for maintaining overall health and well-being. Its role in metabolism, detoxification, digestion, and immune function makes it one of the most important organs in the body.
The human heart is an incredible organ. It begins beating just a few weeks after conception and continues tirelessly, day and night, for the rest of your life. But here's the biological mystery. How can the heart beat continuously without getting tired? Let's explore the science behind this remarkable endurance. First, it's important to understand that the heart is made of a special type of muscle tissue called cardiac muscle. This muscle is involuntary, meaning it works without conscious control, and it's structurally and functionally distinct from the skeletal muscles that move your limbs. Unlike skeletal muscles, which contract forcefully and then need rest, cardiac muscle is optimized for continuous rhythmic contractions. It is built not for speed or strength, but for endurance and reliability. One key reason the heart doesn't tire is its high mitochondrial density. Mitochondria are the organelles responsible for producing adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency of the cell. In skeletal muscle, mitochondria may take up about 2 to 8% of cell volume. But in cardiac muscle, mitochondria occupy roughly 30 to 40% of the cell's volume. This means the heart has an abundant and constant energy supply, allowing it to sustain its contractions with minimal fatigue. Another major factor is the heart's preference for aerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration uses oxygen to produce energy from glucose, fatty acids, and lactate. Unlike anaerobic respiration, which leads to the buildup of lactic acid and causes muscle fatigue, aerobic metabolism is clean and efficient, producing much more ATP per molecule of glucose, and without harmful byproducts. This is why the heart depends on a constant oxygen supply delivered by the coronary arteries. If this supply is interrupted, even briefly, as in a heart attack, cardiac cells begin to die rapidly. Another fascinating feature is the heart's intrinsic conduction system. The heartbeat is controlled by specialized cardiac cells, not the brain. The sinoatrial SA node, located in the right atrium, acts as the heart's natural pacemaker. It generates electrical impulses that spread across the heart muscle, causing it to contract in a coordinated manner. This system is self-regulating, and the heart can even continue beating temporarily when removed from the body, as long as it has nutrients and oxygen. While the heart works constantly, it does rest, briefly, between beats. A full cardiac cycle takes about 0.8 seconds at a normal resting heart rate. Of that, about 0.4 seconds is diastole, when the heart muscles relax and the chambers refill with blood. This brief relaxation period allows cardiac muscle fibers to recover without stopping the overall function. So while it seems like the heart is always working, it is in fact resting between each beat, thousands of times per day. Despite its endurance, the heart is not invincible. Cardiac muscle cells, known as cardiomyocytes, have limited regenerative capacity. That's why damage from conditions like myocardial infarction or heart attack is often permanent, and prevention is critical. A healthy heart relies on proper blood flow, balanced electrolytes, especially calcium, sodium, and potassium, and regular oxygen delivery. Lifestyle factors such as exercise, diet, and stress management directly impact cardiac health. To sum up, the heart doesn't get tired because of its specialized muscle type, its high energy production from mitochondria, its use of aerobic metabolism, and its ability to rest briefly between beats. It is an incredibly efficient, self-sustaining system designed for lifelong function. So while you rest at night, your heart never sleeps. An amazing example of biological engineering in action. The human stomach is a vital organ in the digestive system, responsible for the mechanical and chemical breakdown of food. It serves as a dynamic reservoir where food is temporarily stored, mixed with gastric secretions, and then delivered in controlled amounts to the small intestine. Structurally and functionally complex, the stomach's anatomy can be classified into external and internal features, each contributing uniquely to its digestive role. External anatomy of the stomach. Location and position. The stomach is located in the upper left quadrant of the abdominal cavity, predominantly in the epigastric, left hypochondriac, and umbilical regions. It lies just inferior to the diaphragm and posterior to the left lobe of the liver. In normal adults, the stomach occupies a J-shaped position, but this shape may vary depending on body habitus and stomach contents. Gross anatomical divisions. Externally, the stomach is divided into four major regions: the cardia, fundus, body, and pylorus. The cardia is the area surrounding the opening of the esophagus into the stomach. It contains the lower esophageal sphincter, LES, which serves as a critical barrier to prevent the reflux of acidic gastric contents into the esophagus, thus protecting the esophageal lining. The fundus is the dome-shaped superior portion of the stomach, which lies above the level of the cardia. It often contains a gas bubble that is visible on radiographic imaging. The body or corpus is the central and largest region of the stomach, primarily involved in the storage and mechanical digestion of ingested food through churning movements. The pylorus is the funnel-shaped distal part of the stomach, which includes the pyloric antrum and pyloric canal. The antrum is the wider portion where food is mixed with gastric secretions, while the canal narrows down and connects to the duodenum via the pyloric sphincter, a muscular valve that regulates gastric emptying. Curvatures and surfaces. The greater curvature is the longer, convex lateral border of the stomach that extends from the cardia to the pylorus. It provides attachment for the greater omentum, a significant peritoneal fold that drapes over the intestines. The lesser curvature is the shorter, concave medial border of the stomach. It serves as the site of attachment for the lesser omentum, which connects the stomach to the liver. The anterior surface of the stomach is related to the diaphragm, left lobe of the liver, and anterior abdominal wall. The posterior surface lies in close proximity to the pancreas, spleen, left kidney, and adrenal gland. These structures collectively form the stomach's bed, a term used to describe its posterior anatomical relations. Internal anatomy of the stomach, mucosal folds. Rugae. Internally, the stomach is lined with mucosal folds, known as rugae. These folds are most prominent when the stomach is empty and serve to increase the organ's surface area. During food intake, they allow the stomach to expand significantly without increasing internal pressure. Gastric pits and glands. The surface mucosa of the stomach is punctuated by numerous invaginations called gastric pits. These pits lead into gastric glands, which are responsible for the secretion of various substances necessary for digestion, including acid, enzymes, mucus, and hormones. Histological layers of the stomach wall. Mucosa. The mucosa is the innermost layer of the stomach wall and consists of three components: the epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis mucosae. The epithelium is made up of simple columnar cells that secrete mucus to protect the stomach lining from the harsh acidic environment. The lamina propria is a connective tissue layer that contains capillaries, lymph vessels, and immune cells. The muscularis mucosae is a thin layer of smooth muscle that aids in the movement of mucosa and helps expel glandular contents. Specialized cells found within the gastric glands include parietal cells, which secrete hydrochloric acid, HCl, and intrinsic factor, chief cells, which produce pepsinogen, mucous neck cells, which secrete mucus, and enteroendocrine G cells, which release the hormone gastrin. These cells play a pivotal role in the digestive processes occurring in the stomach. Submucosa. The submucosa is composed of dense connective tissue that houses larger blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves. It provides structural support and contains the Meissner's plexus, a network of nerves that regulates secretions and local blood flow within the mucosa. Muscularis externa. The muscularis externa of the stomach is unique because it contains 3 layers of smooth muscle rather than the typical 2 found in most parts of the gastrointestinal tract. These layers are the inner oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal layers. Together, they allow for powerful churning and mixing movements, enhancing the mechanical digestion of food. Serosa, or visceral peritoneum. The outermost layer is the serosa, also known as the visceral peritoneum. It is a smooth membrane that covers the external surface of the stomach, reducing friction between the stomach and surrounding organs during movement. Gastric juices and secretions. Hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is secreted by the parietal cells and maintains the stomach's highly acidic environment, with a pH ranging from 1.5 to 3.5. This acid denatures dietary proteins, facilitates the activation of pepsinogen into pepsin, and destroys ingested pathogens, thereby playing a crucial role in both digestion and immunity. Pepsinogen, secreted by Chief cells, is an inactive enzyme that is converted into pepsin upon contact with hydrochloric acid. Pepsin is a protease that breaks down proteins into smaller peptides, initiating protein digestion in the stomach. Mucus. Mucus is produced by mucus cells and forms a protective barrier that coats the stomach lining. This barrier prevents the stomach from digesting itself and protects against the corrosive effects of hydrochloric acid and pepsin. Intrinsic factor. Intrinsic factor, also secreted by parietal cells, is essential for the absorption of vitamin B12 in the ileum. A deficiency in intrinsic factor leads to pernicious anemia, a condition characterized by impaired red blood cell production. Gastrin. Gastrin is a hormone released by G cells in the pyloric antrum. It stimulates gastric acid secretion, enhances gastric motility, and promotes the growth of the gastric mucosa. Gastrin release is triggered by the presence of peptides and amino acids in the stomach. Physiology of gastric function. Gastric motility. Gastric motility involves coordinated muscular contractions that facilitate the mechanical digestion and propulsion of food. It can be divided into 3 phases. Receptive relaxation occurs when the fundus and upper body of the stomach relax to accommodate incoming food. Peristaltic contractions begin in the body and move toward the pylorus, mixing the food with gastric secretions. Gastric emptying is regulated by the pyloric sphincter, which ensures that only small amounts of chyme enter the duodenum at a time. Gastric digestion. Digestion in the stomach involves both mechanical and chemical processes. Mechanically, the stomach churns food through peristaltic movements. Chemically, the acidic environment and enzymes like pepsin break down complex macromolecules into simpler forms, suitable for absorption in the small intestine. Gastric absorption. Although the stomach is not a primary site for nutrient absorption, certain substances such as alcohol, aspirin, and some water-soluble drugs can be absorbed directly through the gastric mucosa. Neurohormonal regulation of gastric function. Cephalic phase. The cephalic phase of gastric secretion is initiated by the sight, smell, taste, or thought of food. This phase is mediated by the vagus nerve and stimulates the secretion of gastric juices even before food enters the stomach. Gastric phase. The gastric phase begins when food reaches the stomach. It involves both mechanical stretch of the stomach wall and chemical stimulation by partially digested proteins. This phase leads to further stimulation of gastric secretions and motility. Intestinal phase. The intestinal phase starts when chyme enters the duodenum. Initially, it stimulates gastric activity, but subsequently inhibits it through mechanisms like the enterogastric reflex and the release of hormones such as secretin and cholecystokinin. These hormones reduce gastric secretions and slow gastric emptying to allow adequate digestion and absorption in the small intestine. Associated structures and blood supply. Blood supply. The stomach receives a rich blood supply primarily from branches of the celiac trunk. The left gastric artery supplies the lesser curvature, while the right gastric artery contributes to the same area from the hepatic artery. The right and left gastroepiploic arteries supply the greater curvature, and the short gastric arteries serve the fundus. Venous drainage parallels the arterial supply and ultimately drains into the portal vein, allowing nutrient-rich blood to pass through the liver for processing. Lymphatic drainage. Lymph from the stomach drains into the gastric and celiac lymph nodes. This pathway is clinically significant because gastric cancers often metastasize through these lymphatic channels. Innervation. The stomach is innervated by both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. Parasympathetic innervation is provided by the vagus nerve, which enhances secretory and motor activity. Sympathetic fibers arise from the celiac plexus and serve to inhibit gastric activity and constrict blood vessels. Pathological considerations. Gastritis. Gastritis is the inflammation of the gastric mucosa and may be acute or chronic. Common causes include infection with Helicobacter pylori, prolonged use of NSAIDs, alcohol consumption, and stress. Peptic ulcer disease. Peptic ulcers are erosions in the mucosal lining of the stomach or duodenum, resulting from an imbalance between aggressive factors like acid and pepsin and protective mechanisms like mucus and bicarbonate. They are frequently associated with H. pylori infection and NSAID usage. Gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD. GERD occurs when the lower esophageal sphincter fails to prevent the backflow of stomach contents into the esophagus, leading to symptoms such as heartburn and regurgitation. Gastric cancer. Gastric cancer often presents in advanced stages and is associated with risk factors such as chronic gastritis, H. pylori infection, smoking, and dietary habits. It commonly metastasizes to regional lymph nodes and distant organs. Gastroparesis. Gastroparesis is a condition characterized by delayed gastric emptying in the absence of any mechanical obstruction. It often results from vagus nerve dysfunction and is commonly seen in diabetic patients. Embryological development. The stomach originates from the embryonic foregut and undergoes significant morphological changes during development. Initially, it forms as a simple tubular structure that subsequently enlarges and rotates 90 degrees clockwise around its longitudinal axis. This rotation brings the left side of the stomach anteriorly and creates the greater and lesser curvatures. The differential growth of the dorsal and ventral walls contributes to its final J-shaped appearance. Stomach, in clinical imaging and endoscopy. The stomach can be examined using various diagnostic tools. X-ray imaging with barium contrast highlights the stomach's shape, position, and motility. Endoscopy allows direct visualization of the mucosa and facilitates biopsy for histological examination. CT and MRI scans are useful for evaluating structural abnormalities, tumors, and complications, such as perforation. The stomach is a sophisticated organ integrating anatomical architecture, enzymatic activity, and neurohormonal control to facilitate digestion. From its layered histology to dynamic motility and robust secretion, the stomach's design underscores its central role in gastrointestinal physiology. Understanding its complex structure and function is crucial, not only for academic knowledge, but also for diagnosing and managing various gastrointestinal disorders.
The nose is one of the most noticeable features on the human face and plays a vital role in both appearance and function. Beyond its role in breathing, it contributes to our sense of smell, influences the way we speak, and helps protect our respiratory system by filtering and warming the air we breathe. Despite its small size compared to other organs, the nose is incredibly complex, containing a combination of bone, cartilage, mucous membranes, and nerve endings that all work together seamlessly. To understand how this organ functions, it is important to explore its structure, the parts that make it up, and how each of those parts contributes to its purpose. While the external appearance of the nose is what most people recognize, its internal components are far more intricate and fascinating. These parts not only allow us to smell, but also serve as a first line of defense against harmful particles in the air. People who are not from a biology background might think of the nose simply as the place where air enters and exits the body, but it does much more than that. It acts like a natural air filter, humidifier, and even contributes to how our voices sound. This detailed explanation will walk you through the different components of the nose and how they function, using clear and simple language that anyone can understand. Parts of the nose. The nose is generally divided into two main parts: the external nose and the internal nasal cavity. The external nose is the part that is visible on the face, while the internal nasal cavity is the part that is located inside the skull. The internal structure is much larger than it appears from the outside and connects to the sinuses, throat, and even the ears in some ways. The external nose includes the nostrils, also called nares, the nasal tip, and the bridge. The nasal skeleton underneath is made of a combination of bone and cartilage, which gives the nose its shape and structure. Cartilage is a flexible tissue that is softer than bone, which allows for a degree of movement and flexibility. The internal nose, or nasal cavity, is divided into two halves by a thin wall called the nasal septum. Each half of the nasal cavity has its own passage for air to flow through. Inside the nasal cavity, there are important structures called turbinates, also called conchae, which are curved bony plates that help to warm, moisten, and clean the air as it passes through. Within the nose, there are also the olfactory receptors, which are responsible for detecting smell. These receptors are located at the top of the nasal cavity and send signals to the brain via the olfactory nerve. In addition to this, the nose contains mucous membranes that produce mucus, which helps trap dust and pathogens. External nose. The external part of the nose is what you see on the face. It is made up of skin, muscles, connective tissues, cartilage, and bone. It starts from the root of the nose, which is located between the eyes and ends at the tip or apex of the nose. The bridge of the nose is the upper portion that is supported by nasal bones, while the lower portion is supported by cartilage. The nostrils, or nares, are the two openings at the bottom of the nose that allow air to enter and exit. These nostrils are surrounded by wing-like structures called the alae, which are composed mainly of cartilage and covered by skin. The tip of the nose, known as the apex, is soft and mobile because it is mostly cartilage. The overall shape of the external nose varies from person to person and is often influenced by genetic factors. The external nose also includes a thin strip of skin called the columella, which separates the two nostrils from each other. This visible part of the nose plays an important role in aesthetics and facial symmetry, but also serves as the entryway for air to reach the inside of the nose. Nasal septum. The nasal septum is the thin vertical wall that separates the left and right nasal cavities. It is made of both bone and cartilage. The front part of the septum is cartilage, which is soft and flexible, while the back part is made of bone and provides structural support. A properly positioned septum ensures that both sides of the nose receive equal airflow. However, in many people, the septum may be slightly off-center. This condition is known as a deviated septum, and it can lead to breathing problems, frequent nosebleeds, or sinus infections if severe. The nasal septum also supports the structure of the nose and helps maintain its shape. It is lined with mucous membrane that contains tiny hair-like structures called cilia, which help move mucus and trapped particles toward the throat, where they can be swallowed or expelled. Nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is the large hollow space behind the nose. It extends from the nostrils to the back of the throat. This cavity is lined with a mucous membrane that helps to trap dust, germs, and other harmful particles. This membrane also keeps the inside of the nose moist and helps warm and humidify the air before it reaches the lungs. Inside the nasal cavity are several structures called turbinates, or nasal conchae. These are bony projections covered with soft tissue. There are usually 3 turbinates on each side: the superior, middle, and inferior turbinates. These structures increase the surface area inside the nose, which allows for better filtering and conditioning of the air. The nasal cavity also contains small openings that connect to the paranasal sinuses. These are air-filled spaces in the bones of the skull that help reduce the weight of the head, produce mucus, and affect the sound of our voice. The sinuses include the frontal, maxillary, ethmoid, and sphenoid sinuses. Turbinates. Turbinates, or nasal conchae, are curved bones inside the nasal cavity that are covered in a thick layer of mucous membrane. They are responsible for increasing the surface area within the nose, which helps in conditioning the air that we breathe. The superior turbinate is the smallest and sits highest in the nasal cavity, while the middle and inferior turbinates are larger and sit below. The turbinates play a crucial role in filtering and warming the air. As air passes over the turbinates, it is cleaned by the mucus and warmed by the blood vessels within them. This process ensures that the air entering the lungs is at the right temperature and free of harmful particles. When the turbinates become swollen due to allergies or infections, it can lead to nasal congestion and difficulty breathing. In some cases, enlarged turbinates may need to be treated with medication or even surgery to restore normal airflow. Olfactory region. At the top of the nasal cavity is a special area called the olfactory region, which contains the receptors responsible for our sense of smell. These receptors are part of the olfactory epithelium, a thin layer of tissue that detects odor molecules in the air. When we breathe in, air carrying different smells travels up to this area, and the receptors send signals to the olfactory bulb, a structure located just above the nasal cavity in the brain. The olfactory bulb then processes these signals and sends them to the brain where the smell is identified. This sense of smell is closely connected to our sense of taste. That's why food seems tasteless when you have a blocked nose. The olfactory system is delicate and can be damaged by infections, injuries, or even aging, leading to a reduced or complete loss of smell, a condition known as anosmia. Mucous membranes and cilia. The inner lining of the nose is covered with mucous membranes, which secrete mucus to keep the nasal cavity moist. This moisture is essential for trapping dust, bacteria, and other particles that could be harmful if they reach the lungs. The mucus is sticky and helps hold on to these invaders until they can be removed. Along with mucus, the nose also contains cilia, which are microscopic hair-like structures that move in a wave-like motion. These cilia push the mucus and trapped particles toward the back of the throat, where they can be swallowed and destroyed by stomach acid. This cleaning system is very effective and works continuously to protect our respiratory system. When we are sick, this process can slow down or become overwhelmed, leading to a stuffy nose or sinus infection. Drinking water and using humidifiers can help keep the mucous membranes healthy and functioning properly. Paranasal sinuses. The paranasal sinuses are air-filled spaces within the bones around the nose. They are connected to the nasal cavity by small channels. These sinuses include the frontal sinus in the forehead, maxillary sinus under the eyes, ethmoid sinus between the eyes, and sphenoid sinus behind the eyes. These sinuses help reduce the weight of the skull, improve voice resonance, and produce mucus that drains into the nasal cavity. They are lined with the same type of mucous membrane as the nasal cavity, so they also help trap and remove harmful particles. When the sinuses become inflamed due to infection or allergies, it results in a condition called sinusitis, which can cause facial pain, pressure, and difficulty breathing through the nose. Healthy sinuses are normally filled with air and allow mucus to drain easily, but blocked sinuses can lead to discomfort and infection. Blood supply and nerves. The nose has a rich blood supply which helps warm the air as it passes through. Several arteries supply blood to the nose, including the facial artery and branches of the internal and external carotid arteries. Because of this rich blood flow, the nose can bleed easily, especially in dry conditions or due to trauma. The nose is also connected to many nerves, which allow it to sense touch, pain, temperature, and smell. The most important nerve related to smell is the olfactory nerve, cranial nerve I. Other nerves provide sensation to the skin of the nose and its internal structures, including the trigeminal nerve, which is responsible for facial sensations. These nerves play an important role in triggering reflexes such as sneezing, which helps clear irritants from the nose. The nose is sensitive to many types of stimuli, including strong smells, dust, and changes in temperature. Function and importance. The nose is not just an entry point for air, it is a multifunctional organ that plays an essential role in protecting and supporting the respiratory system. Its design ensures that the air we breathe is clean, warm, and moist, which is important for lung health. It also acts as the first line of defense against airborne threats like dust, bacteria, and viruses. The sense of smell provided by the nose helps us enjoy food, detect hazards like smoke or gas leaks, and even triggers emotional memories. The shape of the nasal passages also influences the sound of our voice by acting as a resonating chamber. This is why people sound different when they have a blocked nose due to a cold. Overall, the nose is a complex and vital part of the body that works constantly, even though we may not always be aware of its functions. From filtering air to detecting smells, its roles are deeply integrated with other systems of the body. Finally, understanding the anatomy of the nose gives us a deeper appreciation of how this small but powerful organ contributes to our daily lives. It is far more than a facial feature. It is a carefully designed system that manages airflow, detects scents, protects the lungs, and adds resonance to our voice. With its external and internal components working together, the nose ensures that every breath we take supports our health and well-being. Whether you're trying to understand nasal health or simply want to know more about how your body works, knowing the nose's structure and function is a valuable step toward better awareness and self-care. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed exploring human anatomy with us, don't forget to subscribe to Inside Us for more easy-to-understand videos related to human anatomy and organ system. See you in the next one. Diabetes mellitus is one of the most widely discussed health conditions in the world today, affecting millions of children and adults. Even though it sounds complicated, the idea behind it is simple once you understand how the body uses food for energy. Learning about diabetes is important because it helps us make better choices, recognize early signs, and support people who live with it every day. What is diabetes mellitus? Diabetes mellitus is a long-term health condition where the level of sugar in your blood becomes higher than normal. Your body needs sugar for energy, just like a smartphone needs a battery to work. But that sugar must go inside the cells of your body, where it can be used. To help sugar enter the cells, your body uses a special hormone called insulin, which is made by an organ called the pancreas. Think of insulin like a key and your cells like locked doors. Sugar stays outside the cell until insulin opens the door. In diabetes, something goes wrong with this key system. Sometimes the body makes no insulin, sometimes it makes too little insulin, and sometimes the insulin doesn't work properly. Because of this, sugar gets stuck in the blood and cannot enter the cells. This causes hyperglycemia, which means high blood sugar. When sugar stays high for too long, it can slowly damage your eyes, kidneys, nerves, heart, and many other parts of the body. That's why doctors take diabetes so seriously. It's not just about sugar, it's about protecting the whole body from long-term harm. Types of diabetes. There are different kinds of diabetes, and each has a different reason for happening. Understanding these types helps make sense of how the disease works. Type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes usually happens when the immune system attacks the pancreas by mistake. The immune system is supposed to fight germs, but in this case, it thinks the insulin-making cells of the pancreas are harmful and destroys them. Because of this attack, the pancreas cannot make insulin anymore. People with type 1 diabetes must take insulin every day, usually through an injection or a pump. Without insulin, their bodies cannot use sugar at all, which can be dangerous. Type 1 often appears in children and teenagers, but adults can also get it. The attack on the pancreas does not happen because the child ate too much sugar or did something wrong. It just happens randomly, often because of genetics and unknown triggers. Scientists call it an autoimmune disease, which means the body attacks itself by mistake. Type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is the most common type in the world. In type 2, the body still makes insulin, but the insulin does not work properly. This problem is called insulin resistance. Imagine trying to use a key that fits the lock but becomes rusty and doesn't open the door properly. That's how insulin resistance works. Over time, because the insulin is not working well, the pancreas tries to make more and more insulin to keep up. But after many years, the pancreas becomes tired and cannot produce enough insulin. This makes sugar levels go higher and higher. Type 2 diabetes is often related to being overweight, not exercising enough, eating too much junk food, or having family members with diabetes. Adults usually get type 2, but more kids and teenagers are getting it now because modern lifestyles involve more screen time and less physical activity. Gestational diabetes. Gestational diabetes happens only in pregnant women. When a woman is pregnant, her body makes special hormones to help the baby grow. Sometimes these hormones make the mother's body resist insulin, causing her sugar level to rise. This usually goes away after the baby is born. However, women who get gestational diabetes have a higher chance of getting type 2 diabetes in the future. Secondary diabetes. This type happens when another condition or medicine damages the pancreas or affects how insulin works. For example, some long-term medications like steroids or diseases that affect the pancreas can lead to diabetes. Unlike type 1 and type 2, secondary diabetes is caused by something external, not by the immune system or insulin resistance alone. Why does diabetes happen? To understand why diabetes happens, you need to know how the body processes sugar. When you eat food, especially foods like bread, rice, fruits, or sweets, your body breaks them down into glucose, which is a type of sugar. This glucose enters the blood and needs to move into the cells. That is where insulin comes in, acting like a helper. In type 1 diabetes, insulin is missing completely because the immune system destroys the cells that make it. Without insulin, the sugar cannot go inside the cells at all. In type 2 diabetes, the insulin is there, but the cells don't respond to it properly. It's like the key is too weak to open the door. This makes the pancreas work harder, but after years of struggling, it cannot keep up. In both types, the result is the same. Too much sugar stays in the blood, leading to health problems. Signs and symptoms. People with diabetes start to notice certain changes in their bodies because the sugar in their blood is too high. They feel very thirsty even after drinking plenty of water because the body tries to flush out extra sugar through urine. They go to the bathroom to pee a lot, especially at night. They feel hungry all the time, even after eating, because the sugar is not reaching the cells, so the body thinks it needs more food. Some people start losing weight without trying, especially in type 1 because the body begins burning fat and muscle for energy. They may feel very tired, have blurry vision, and may take longer to heal cuts or bruises. Some people also get frequent infections because high sugar makes it easier for germs to grow. If diabetes becomes very serious, it can cause dangerous conditions like diabetic ketoacidosis, DKA in type 1, or hyperglycemic hyperosmolar state, HHS in type 2. These conditions must be treated in the hospital. Long-term problems if diabetes is not controlled. If high blood sugar continues for months or years, it can slowly damage many parts of the body. That's why doctors say diabetes needs serious long-term management. High sugar can damage the tiny blood vessels in the eyes, leading to vision problems and even blindness. It can harm the kidneys, which filter waste from the blood. Over time, the kidneys can fail if diabetes is not controlled. It can damage the nerves, leading to numbness, especially in the feet. Because of this numbness, a person may step on something sharp without realizing it, and wounds may not heal properly. This can lead to serious infections. Diabetes also increases the risk of heart attacks and strokes because high sugar affects the blood vessels and makes them weaker or clogged. This is why controlling diabetes is not just about numbers, it is about protecting the entire body. How doctors test for diabetes. Doctors have several ways to check if someone has diabetes. One common test is fasting blood sugar, where the person doesn't eat for 8 hours and then the sugar level is checked. Another test is HbA1c, which shows the average sugar level of the past 3 months. Sometimes doctors perform an OGTT test, where the person drinks a sugary drink and sugar levels are checked after 2 hours. Doctors also check the kidneys, eyes, feet, and blood pressure to make sure diabetes isn't causing damage. How diabetes is treated. The goal of treating diabetes is to keep sugar levels as close to normal as possible. For type 1 diabetes, people must take insulin every day because their body doesn't make it at all. They check their blood sugar often and adjust their insulin based on food and activity. Some use insulin pens, while others use pumps that deliver insulin slowly throughout the day. For type 2 diabetes, the first step is usually changing lifestyle. Doctors often recommend that eating healthier foods, avoiding sugary drinks, and exercising regularly. If lifestyle changes are not enough, the doctor prescribes medicines that help the body use insulin better. Some people with type 2 also need insulin later in life. Doctors also teach people how to check their sugar at home using a glucometer or a continuous glucose monitor, CGM. This helps people understand what foods raise their sugar and how their medicines are working. A simple way to control diabetes daily. Controlling diabetes requires simple but consistent actions every day. Eating healthy meals full of vegetables, whole grains, and proteins helps the body use sugar better. Avoiding junk food, sugary drinks, and too much fast food is important. Staying physically active helps the body use insulin better. Even walking 30 minutes a day can make a huge difference. Keeping a healthy weight reduces insulin resistance. Getting enough sleep and managing stress also improve blood sugar levels. Taking medicines or insulin exactly as the doctor recommends is important. Skipping doses can make sugar levels dangerous. Is there a cure for diabetes? Many people hope for a permanent cure for diabetes, but currently there is no complete cure. Type 1 diabetes cannot be cured because the body stops making insulin permanently. Scientists are working on ways to replace the destroyed cells or protect them from the immune system, but these solutions are still being tested. Type 2 diabetes does not have a permanent cure either, but it can go into remission. Remission means the sugar levels become normal without medicine. This usually happens when a person loses a lot of weight, eats healthy foods, exercises regularly, and keeps the body active. But if they stop these habits, the diabetes often returns. Scientists are exploring new technologies like artificial pancreases, stem cell therapy, and smart insulin. But these solutions take time to develop. Future possibilities and research. In the future, diabetes may become easier to manage because of new technologies. Scientists are studying stem cells that may help the pancreas make insulin again. They are developing artificial pancreas machines that automatically give insulin based on sugar levels. Some companies are working on pills that might replace injections. There is also research on protecting beta cells from the immune system. Although these possibilities are exciting, they are not available for everyone yet. More research, testing, and development are needed to make them safe and effective. So in summary, diabetes mellitus is a condition where blood sugar becomes too high because the body cannot make or properly use insulin. Type 1 happens when the immune system destroys insulin-making cells, and it requires insulin injections. Type 2 happens when insulin doesn't work properly, and it can sometimes be managed with healthy habits and medicines. There is no permanent cure, but type 2 can go into remission with major lifestyle changes. Taking care of diabetes every day protects the eyes, kidneys, nerves, and heart from long-term damage. What is pneumonia? Pneumonia is a serious infection of the lungs in which the tiny air sacs called alveoli become inflamed and fill with fluid, pus, or mucus. Under normal conditions, these air sacs remain open and elastic so they can efficiently exchange gases. Specifically, oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide leaves the body. However, when pneumonia develops, these air sacs become swollen and clogged with infected fluid. Because of this, oxygen is unable to pass efficiently into the bloodstream, which results in difficulty breathing, fatigue, weakness, and low oxygen levels in the body. Pneumonia is not a single disease, but rather a general term for various types of lung infection that may be caused by bacteria, viruses, fungi, or aspiration of foreign material. The severity can range from mild illness that improves with rest and medication to a life-threatening condition requiring hospitalization and intensive care. The danger level depends on the cause of infection, the patient's age, immune strength, and underlying health conditions. People who are very young, elderly, or medically vulnerable are at much higher risk of developing complications. This includes infants, children under 5, adults over 65, people with diabetes, asthma, COPD, heart disease, kidney disease, cancer, HIV, or anyone with a weakened immune system. In such individuals, pneumonia may progress rapidly and must be treated promptly and carefully. Symptoms of pneumonia. General symptoms in most adults. The symptoms of pneumonia can vary widely, but most patients experience some combination of cough, fever, breathing difficulty, weakness, and chest discomfort. The cough may be dry or it may produce thick phlegm that can appear yellow, green, brown, or occasionally blood-streaked. The presence of phlegm indicates that the airways are producing mucus in response to infection. Most people develop a fever, which may come with chills, sweating, and shaking. Because the lungs are not oxygenating the body effectively, many patients feel short of breath, particularly when walking, climbing stairs, or lying flat. They may breathe rapidly or shallowly, and some people experience wheezing or noisy breathing. Another hallmark symptom is chest pain, especially sharp pain that becomes worse when coughing, sneezing, or taking deep breaths. This occurs because the lining around the lungs, the pleura, becomes irritated and inflamed. In addition to respiratory symptoms, people commonly feel extreme tiredness, weakness, sleepiness, dizziness, loss of appetite, nausea, or body aches. These symptoms appear because the body is using large amounts of energy to fight the infection. And symptoms in children. In children, pneumonia can look different from adults. Children may breathe very rapidly, make grunting or wheezing sounds, or show flaring of the nostrils while breathing. Babies may refuse to feed, vomit frequently, or appear unusually sleepy, irritable, or weak. Some children may not cough much but may still have high fever and breathing difficulty. Parents should seek medical attention if a child appears to be struggling to breathe or stops responding normally. Symptoms in elderly people. In elderly adults, pneumonia may present in a less obvious and more dangerous way. Instead of fever, they may develop low body temperature, fatigue, confusion, memory changes, or disorientation. These signs indicate that the brain is not receiving enough oxygen. Elderly individuals may also collapse or feel suddenly weak. If the lips, fingertips, or face appear bluish or grayish, this signals dangerously low oxygen levels and requires emergency treatment. How pneumonia happens and what causes it. Bacterial pneumonia. The most common cause of pneumonia in adults is bacterial infection, particularly infection with Streptococcus pneumoniae. This type of pneumonia often develops after a person has already had a cold, flu, or throat infection because the respiratory system becomes irritated and weakened, making it easier for bacteria to invade the lungs. Bacterial pneumonia tends to develop suddenly, producing high fever, chills, sweating, chest pain, and thick phlegm. Viral pneumonia. Many cases of pneumonia are caused by viruses, including influenza, flu, RSV, and COVID-19. Viral pneumonia is especially common in children and older adults. It may begin like a normal viral infection with fever, sore throat, runny nose, and body aches, but over time progresses into shortness of breath and worsening cough. In some individuals, viral pneumonia can weaken the lungs enough that bacterial infection develops on top of it, known as secondary bacterial pneumonia. Fungal pneumonia. Fungal pneumonia occurs less frequently and typically affects people with weakened immune systems, chronic illnesses, or long-term use of steroids or chemotherapy. It may develop gradually and produce chronic cough, fever, and weight loss. This form of pneumonia requires specialized antifungal treatment. Aspiration pneumonia. Aspiration pneumonia develops when food, liquid, saliva, or vomit accidentally enters the lungs instead of the stomach. This can happen in people who are unconscious, intoxicated, elderly, bedridden, or who have swallowing or neurological problems. The foreign material introduces bacteria into the lungs and causes inflammation. How pneumonia affects the human body. When germs enter the lungs, the body attempts to defend itself by activating the immune system. Large numbers of white blood cells travel to the infected areas to fight the invading organisms. While this immune reaction is necessary, it also triggers inflammation. The air sacs become swollen and filled with fluid, mucus, and cellular debris, which narrows the space available for air to move through. Because of this inflammation, oxygen absorption decreases sharply. As oxygen levels fall, the body becomes weak and organs begin to function less efficiently. The heart must pump harder in an attempt to deliver adequate oxygen to tissues, which may cause rapid pulse, fatigue, dizziness, or fainting. The muscles receive less oxygen, leading to weakness and exhaustion. If pneumonia becomes severe, the infection may enter the bloodstream, leading to sepsis, a life-threatening condition that can cause shock, organ failure, or death. Fluid may accumulate around the lungs, known as pleural effusion,